More and more, the news is making us aware of the biohazards in our environment. From food recalls due to listeria, to outbreaks of measles and even Ebola, the possibility of exposure is on the rise.
A biohazard is a bacteria or a virus that could actually cause harm to a human. It could also cause harm to animals. Oftentimes people don't even realize that they have been exposed to a biohazard. A person with the flu can laugh or sneeze. Well, probably not going to be laughing if they have the flu, but sneeze, cough, and those particles would fall onto a surface, and then hours later someone could come by, touch that surface, touch their eyes, their nose, their mouth, and guess what? They have just inoculated themselves with the flu. For instance, if you're in the healthcare environment, or perhaps you're in a school environment, or you work in an emergency response environment, you may come in contact with blood or body fluids. Those body fluids may in fact carry infection.
The kind of diseases we're talking about with biohazards are the things that are making headlines. It's the E. coli outbreak, it's the MRSA outbreaks, it's even Ebola. But the reason why they're so dangerous is, first of all, biohazards can often be invisible. They can be what we don't see when we're cleaning up something. But more importantly, a lot of these things can live on a surface for a good period of time. For example, hepatitis C, someone may have had a spill or a cut where the blood left on a surface was out there for up to 3 weeks, and it can still be potent and transmitted.
Look at safety first. You always want to make sure your workers are safe. You always want to make sure the public's safe. If there's a spill of blood or body fluids, there is a possibility that there could be infection included in that. And the thing that you're trying to prevent is spread of any type of infection.
As public awareness of biohazards grows, preparedness for a blood or biological spill is critical. Knowing proper protocols to follow internally and who to use as a qualified external resource is key to mitigating risk exposure.
We've come a long way with understanding what the protocols need to be with dealing with biohazards, and two of the most important things are them to be cleaned up thoroughly and quickly. The reason why that is so important is because, especially when you're dealing with a workplace environment or something that's consumer-facing like a restaurant or a daycare, there's an opportunity for transmission to take place, and the quicker that you can contain that problem, the safer everyone's going to be. A lot of people think that biohazards can be cleaned up the way we clean up all other things, getting out the mop and bucket or a sponge and some bleach. But actually, that's not the appropriate way to take care of these kinds of situations. For example, one of the things that's most important is that biohazards are virtually invisible. Yes, you might see the blood stain, but you may not see the very minute particles that will be outside what you've actually cleaned up. So you need to be able to understand the scope of the accident and how best to take the protocols to clean it up. And if you don't have the capabilities to manage them, you need to know when to call in an expert.
Training is critical, having the right equipment. You also want to make sure that they understand the process of cleaning the area and disinfecting the area appropriately so that infection, if it's there, is not spread to anyone.
Outbreaks and epidemics can be a result of improper cleanup, whether from unsuitable employee protection or lack of cross-contamination avoidance measures.
There was one study where out of 920 people, over 10% of them contracted hepatitis. That's not really something that you want to see happening in this day and age. Luckily, there's a lot of protocols that we now have in place, and understand that if they're not prepared to address those situations, they need to talk to a professional.
Aftermath Services, the leading nationwide provider of biohazard remediation and crime scene cleaning, provides professional removal of blood and biological matter.
Aftermath is a nationwide biohazard remediation company, so we specialize in handling any type of situation where bodily fluids or blood have been exposed due to a traumatic event. So it could be a suicide, a homicide, natural causes, medical issue. We actually focus on coming in and through our processes look at how we can effectively and quickly take care of the situation for the client who's calling us. Aftermath has become the leader in this industry by being founded on the beliefs of following regulatory and compliance measures to make sure that we're doing the correct practices. So what we've done to respond to the situations in the most rapid fashion we can is mobilized our vehicles to be optimally ready for any situation that could occur. So what you're actually standing in the back of is one of our vehicles that we use to be mobily optimized for our business. As you will look around here, I'll show you some of the stuff we carry. Right here you'll see our personal protective equipment. There's the suits that we wear to go inside the scenes. We have towels for obviously cleaning up materials and doing a wash process of the rooms. We have obviously here on the side more gear for personal protective equipment. These are our gloves that we would utilize, depending on what we're dealing with. You'll see as we go a little bit further back here, you'll actually see our cleaning agents that we utilize throughout the process. We have some hand tools and power tools below. And then as you pan over here on this side, I'll actually bring you to our medical waste containers right here. This is what we would actually utilize to actually box up, transport, and properly manifest and then dispose of the waste that we generate from the sites. When we show up to a scene, there is no hesitation. Once we actually walk through the process and the scope of what we need to do, we're ready to react at that moment.
There's a common misconception that only large, traumatic situations require professional attention. However, even a small accident poses risk of exposure to dangerous pathogens.
It's never just about the amount. So one drop of blood is just as infectious as a puddle of blood. So you never know what is going to be lying underneath those scenarios or those dangers that may be there. It's very important to treat them exactly the same using standard precautions, making sure that you're protecting yourself and your employees.
As a company, Aftermath Services has made education, awareness, and safety a priority for its customers, employees, and the community.
So what Aftermath has done over time in being in business, we've looked at all the compliance and federal regulations that are needed in this industry to ensure that we're doing things properly. So what we've done is we've developed a training curriculum around what the recommendations from OSHA, NIOSH, and other governing agencies would be, what we have to keep our employees safe on, how do we make them aware, make sure that we're limiting the exposure to our employees, but also the clients at the end of our situation. So that way we know we've left the scenario with the best performance we can have.
Numerous types of bloodborne pathogens can survive outside the body for days or weeks. An improper cleanup not only provides a false sense of security, but may also expose anyone who will come in contact with the area.
I think that if people understand, if I come in contact or come upon a situation where there's blood or body fluids, I really need to make sure that the appropriate individual is taking care of that situation.
I see changes coming from regulatory oversight, which basically saying that's going to bring everyone to the same bar of performance, knowing that they're all going to be operating the same guidelines, the same practices, and making sure that it's a very consistent level of performance that a customer would get from this type of an industry.
To better understand how the Aftermath Way can help you recover from biohazard-related situations, visit www.aftermath.com.